Hello everyone and welcome back. In this video I wanted to talk about something related to the emission, and I want to explain what impulse is. And if we look at the scene here, we see that a lot of pieces are hitting the ground and then they change direction and keep rolling and rotating. And in that state, what happened in that case? The velocity is going in this direction and then it hits the ground and then it flips or changes drastically for 1 second and then takes on another direction. So there is a sudden change in how the velocity is oriented. Okay, the direction the velocity is going at could be a piece that is going in this direction and then it hits and then it's bouncing, it's going upward now. So that moment is called an impulse. It's basically where the geometry has a huge change in the velocity orientation, and you can see it everywhere. And this state or this phase that the pieces are going through is a very good indicative of something that we can use to create emitters from. And this is a technique that I always use to add emission on the ground level. So like all these pieces are hitting the ground and rotating. And what I've done is I have the geo here, the part of the geo, okay, and I isolated one segment, this part, because I saw an interesting behavior that I can explain this idea with. And you can see now it's hit and then it's gonna start bouncing and rotating. And what I want to do is I'm gonna go to one of the frames and show you how the velocity vector looks like. So here, see, this is a great example. And let's see, we have the point. Okay, let's take a look at the velocity. So here, so for example, see how it's coming this way. This frame is similar to the previous, and then in the next one it's very different, but then the one after that are very similar. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to compute the difference in velocity between two frames. If that difference is very high, that's a good indicative that there is a huge change in the velocity, and most likely the pieces are spinning and rotating. So let's do a time shift and check the next frame. And I'm going to do a point VOP. I'm going to take the current frame and the next frame, and let's import attribute, and the point number is this, and the input is the second input, and I want the velocity attribute. And let's plug that in to make sure that it's working. Yep. And I'm going to subtract the current velocity from the next frame velocity and compute the length of this vector. And look at that. We have white color here, and let's put the fit range. Maybe let's try 0 to 50. Let's try 0 to 20. And we could plug in a ramp. And the last thing I'm gonna do is scatter a lot of points on this to properly show this behavior. So let's scatter points on the original geo. I'm gonna turn off. Let's keep it on. It's fine. And now if we one more thing, we need to promote the name attribute. So let's copy this. Okay. So this is our point cloud deformed. This is the next frame, and the velocity is being resampled from the surface. And let's play with the fit range 10, and then let's play with the ramp. So I'm gonna move this here to make it really sharp. And look at how it's coloring everything that is that has that state. Okay, so when there is a big change in the velocity, look at how it's flagging this geometry, and that thing, the big block there, it flashed for one frame, a couple of frames, and stopped. So that's the state that we're looking at. Maybe we can go back one frame instead, because I noticed the hit was not right. So let's see. Let's look at this big block. Yep, I want it to flash when it hits. That's it. So now let's do one last thing. I don't care about the outer layer. I care about the inside faces. So let's do blast and inside. Okay, so that's the inside faces. We want to use the outer layer, so let's delete non-selected. We want to use the shell outside the geometry, and we have a lot of points because the inside is gonna, especially with the uprise method, is gonna give us a lot of details that we don't want, and then this information is gonna be enough for us. See that this bit there, this block is only going to hit those two, and that's where the velocity is the highest. That's where the change of the velocity is high. So this information is very, very useful. Let me cache this. And let's delete this. So we have everything. We have this entire block. Okay, and let's do quick preview. I'm going to change this to no geometry so it doesn't error out. Okay, obviously we need to include a few more things as multipliers, like the velocity magnitude. I also use the height. If the geometry is doing that and it's really high off the ground, then I don't care. I don't consider it. But this is a great approach for doing the impulse, and it depends on the scene or how your scene is looking like. It could be very, very useful. Yeah, I think we need to include the velocity magnitude, but this is just the impulse preview now. So these frames, they have a huge change as well, so that it's considered as an impulse. And you can see they're only rotating when the geometry is not doing that. It's not going to be included here. And as always, we can always check for the next frame using the delta technique to only have it emit in flashes, so it doesn't constantly emit. And we can see other pieces are flashing here and there. And maybe let's try using this with pop, just to see how it could look like. Yeah, could be a very useful source to add some cool stuff as well. And I think that's pretty much it. I'm gonna let this play for a couple more frames and we'll take a look at it in the next video, and then we're gonna start setting up our pop network. Thank you guys for watching, and